So the purpose of today's chat is very simple. I'm going to be specifically talking about what new agents need to know in order to sell life insurance successfully. Just as a side note, I've been in the education space helping agents like you, new, experienced, just about to get licensed, on understanding the landscape when it comes to selling insurance successfully, and hopefully to avoid the landmines that are so common out there. As we'll get into this, there's a lot to know about this business, and it's very easy to make critical errors and mistakes that could contribute to the end of your career before it even starts. I'm very serious about this in the sense of preparing people, whether they join my agency or not, on how to do the best that they can in this otherwise wonderful business. So a little bit about myself, why you should listen, why you should care. I've been in the business since 2011. I was 26 at the time, and got into insurance out of desperation. Nobody was hiring at the time. Stumbled across a little known niche called final expense life insurance. Like the idea of it, helping old people, selling burial insurance, kind of going door to door back in the day, not really much over the phone. Did okay in my first 6 to 9 months. Then I started getting away from the fundamentals and what worked, and failed out of the business around my about first year mark. Got back into the business shortly thereafter, after I got a real job, realized how much that sucked, and then worked my way up to from part-time to full-time effort, and have been at it ever since. Since 2013, I've ran the Dig Agency. I've recruited probably north of 5,000 agents since then to sell predominantly final expense. We used to do Medicare, health insurance, but our focus now is agents who want to sell final expense successfully, remotely from home, and wanting free leads. And all the while, I started the YouTube channel in 2014. So I've been doing this for about since 2014, for approximately 10 years. And if you haven't checked me out on YouTube, throw in David DuFord. You'll see what's in there. Lots of good free educational content. So that's my background. So as we go through this, a couple of things I want to say. Number one, thank you guys for being here live, who are here live. If you have questions, I encourage questions throughout the entirety of the call. You don't have to wait to the end to ask a question. But what I would ask you to do is one of the two. One, throw your question in the chat. Again, you can ask it whenever you feel the need. And then when I get up to a point where I can address it, I'll stop, say your question out loud, and then address it. The other thing you can do, you're welcome to come on the mic and ask a question live. I just want you to raise your hand first, if you don't mind, and then I'll call on you, unmute you, and then you can ask anything that you'd like. If you have questions, by the way, about how my agency works, do save those to the end. If you have them, we'll ask them then. But along the way, just keep it topical, and we'll be happy to help you. So let's jump in. So I can't stress enough why this is important, okay? How many of you all know what an MLM is? Probably the majority of you. Some of you have been involved in multi-level marketing. Some of you have not. And some of you have positive opinions. Some of you have the worst opinions for good reasons. And the reason I bring this up is because a lot of the opportunities in the life insurance space are promoted by multi-level marketing companies, where what you think is important, how do I make a living selling this, is not the actual goal of the agency that's in question that you're possibly going to join. And the reason I bring this up is because there's not hard numbers, but estimations. I would say the failure rate in the life insurance business in the first year is close to or greater than 95% of all new insurance agents. Okay, so why does that matter? If I look at you guys here, there are 33 of you live. I mean, we might be lucky if 2 or 3 of you make it. So think about that. Let that sit in. Now, I think that you guys have a higher chance because you're here to learn and be educated. So you're different from the masses who aren't. But let that sink in. The chances of failure are very, very high. And everybody is going to tell you how great it is to make money and the lifestyle you can live. They're going to share rainbows and sunshine with you. I'm here to tell you the good stuff, but I want you to know the bad stuff, the stuff that you should be aware of. Not that I'm trying to be a Debbie Downer, but I do want you to come into this business, if you're thinking about selling life insurance successfully, with a sober perception and a reality about what this business takes to be successful and what things you can avoid that are big, like red flags that you may not be aware of until the end of this video after you watch everything. It's just imperative that you make good decisions from the beginning, because so many agents get out of this business thinking it's a racket, thinking it's a ripoff. And they're right, because they chose the wrong agency and they didn't get that prior education that you're here for ahead of time. Does that make sense, everybody? I don't want to scare anybody out of this business, but I do want you to go into it with a level head, because it is at the end of the day, an excellent business, one that which you can control your time, work when you want. It's very reasonable in many life insurance spaces to sell from the comfort of your home. You don't have to go into people's homes anymore like the olden days, like 5 years ago. So, but you got to do it right. And that's kind of what my role is here to help you with. Okay. Sound good, everybody? So I've organized this. And by the way, this is for anybody here who is thinking about getting licensed, who is in the process of getting licensed, or who has already gotten licensed. So I assume that's all of you here. This is like who I wish I could talk to the most, because this is the critical period of time that you make these important decisions. So hopefully this information comes off as useful to you. I sure hope so. So I've got 4 different items to go through that I have learned through myself as an agent, making good decisions, making bad decisions, as well as being friends with other agents, recruiting agents myself. And hopefully this accumulated wisdom will help you learn how to become successful as an agent and do the best job that you can. Okay. So before we do that, let me take a sip of coffee here. So number 1, pick your niche. So this is very, very important. I think a lot of people, and you may be thinking this way, like life insurance is life insurance, right? It's all the same. No, it's not. There's a lot of different products of life insurance that you can sell. And there's a lot of different markets you can sell those life insurance products to. And the key takeaway, and we're going to go over what I think are perhaps the most common and possibly the most lucrative niches to get into, the product segments to get into. But it's important to understand that what your options are, and pick the one that is best suited for you, who you are as a person, and how you want to operate in this business. Because what you don't want to do, this is a big fundamental takeaway, is be everything to everybody, right? I'll give you an example. Chick-fil-A, very successful restaurant business, right? What do? One thing, chicken. They're experts in the chicken game, right? Let's see what else. Papa John's. They're experts in the pizza game, right? If you notice, and you got to think like a business does, like businesses that are successful don't do everything. They do one thing extremely well. And I want you to think this way as you get into this business. You got to think of yourself as, okay, I'm like a business and I need to pick one thing and go all into it, because that is the way to get the most success, at least in my experience. Whereas if you try to do this and do that and do another thing, you are exponentially increasing the complexity, and increasing along with the complexity, the chances you're going to fail. Whereas if you just did one thing, and yes, say no to some products that maybe your family or friends would like to buy from you, but you're zoned in on one thing that doesn't necessarily meet them, you'll find that you actually find more success by zoning in on one thing versus spreading yourself thin. Does that make sense? So hopefully the examples I made kind of make sense, because what I've seen time and again, the agents that make the most money, have the most success, they don't do everything. They do one thing extremely well. So let's talk about what those niches are. Again, because you might be brand new to life insurance. You don't know kind of the sub-segments and the pros and the cons. We're going to go into that right now. So number 1, and none of these are in any particular order. These are just kind of the things I see in my agency and others as being the most common as far as being sold and represented. Number 1 on the list here is Index Universal Life. How many of y'all heard of Index Universal Life? Like, it's very popular now. Essentially what Index Universal Life policies do is it is a life insurance policy, but it's designed to track a stock market index as to how much and to what extent it will grow in its cash value while providing a life insurance benefit if you die. The other side of it is that typically the way they're designed is that you cannot lose money, cash value, if the market goes south. So like if we lose 20% in the S&P this year on the stock market, your client doesn't lose anything as far as their cash value accumulation goes. So the way it's sold typically is as a supplement to a retirement plan. It is a way to accumulate cash value for retirement that is able to be dispensed of cash-free, or I'm sorry, cash-free. Hopefully it's cash. Tax-free. That's important. And you see them all over the place. Pros to that product, it's very popular right now. There's a lot of people that have suspicions or concerns about putting their money in the stock market and possibly losing the basis, their starting amount, if the market goes south. I lived through the Great Recession and saw, stock markets drop 40, 50% in a very short period of time. So products like these have an appeal because they're safe, and there's a lot of people that want that envelope of safety around it. The drawback is that sometimes it's difficult to find interested prospects to stay busy on a consistent basis. Not that you can't stay busy on a consistent basis, but that it can be possibly something that is difficult to find. Because in the life insurance space, the reality is that you have to not just have a good product, but you also have to have a lead system to keep you busy. Okay. So what do I mean by that? That means that if you have something that's really cool to sell, but nobody to sell it to, you're kind of a fish out of water, right? Whereas if you have something like mundane, and boring, and maybe not as exciting, but there's a lot of people that actually want it, well, that you can make a business out of, okay? So on the side note, that's really important fundamentals in order to be successful. But in the IUL space, there isn't as many readily available sources of people to sell. They're out there, but to do it at a consistent basis, that's a common complaint that I hear from people who are out there and doing their thing. Okay, cool. Any questions so far? Rachel says, I look dead inside. Sorry. I'll perk up a little bit. Hey, Amanda, thanks for being here. All right. So moving on here. So IULs, we covered IULs. And guys, if you guys have any questions about any of these products, happy to help you too there too. Term insurance. So term insurance is temporary insurance. It's probably the most common type of insurance that is out there. The idea behind term insurance is that it covers temporary obligations. So for example, probably the most common way to sell term insurance is to sell it alongside the sale of a new home. So for example, I just bought a new home. We moved in December, and I got a bunch of letters in the mail that say, hey, if you die, your mortgage isn't covered. Would you like to buy a policy that does that? Would pay a lump sum to my spouse in order to pay off the mortgage, and then to not have the burden of paying the mortgage because, I'm dead and I'm not making an income. So term is, that is called mortgage protection. That is a type of term insurance marketing that you can do to sell term insurance. But term insurance, the pro of term insurance, it's probably the most common way to sell insurance. It's probably one of the cheaper forms of insurance to sell. So there's a lot more prospects to sell to. And it is something that is readily available out there. It's generally easier to find insurance leads so you can sell term insurance to them. Okay. Downside of term, depending on who you're selling to, sometimes underwriting is something that can be difficult. It depends on the type of term insurance you sell. Sometimes it's easier. It depends on the companies. But in the insurance space, you can't just sell a policy. You have to get it approved by underwriting. And the more, especially when you get away from final expense of the products we'll talk about in a minute, there's more underwriting involvement, and it may pose a difficulty sometimes to get the business approved so that your client can get a policy and then you can get paid. But otherwise, term insurance is an option out there as far as a niche that you could possibly get into. Another one out there is called employee benefits. So if you ever had a job, you're probably offered some kind of life insurance that was like 2 times or 3 times your salary. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about employee benefits. It is a very lucrative market, not something I know a ton about, haven't done very much in that space whatsoever, but it is something that you could look into. Usually have to work for companies that specialize, of course, in the employee benefits market. You can work in target large companies. You can work and target the smaller companies. And advantage of those is you can sell multiple policies at a time as opposed to one at a time with one client. Downside is it's a lot of cold calling, at least in my experience, people I've talked to. So a lot of talking to strangers that have not necessarily expressed any interest, but it can be a very lucrative business. The last one that I'll mention here on the life insurance, and there are other life insurance products out there, guys, but these again are the most common, is final expense life insurance. That's what we specialize in at the DIG agency. Final expense can be thought of as burial insurance, right? So the idea behind final expense life insurance is to cover the funeral and burial expenses associated with you or your prospect dying. As Benjamin Franklin said, there are only two things certain in life: taxes and death. And the cool thing is, in the final expense side of thing, we know somebody's going to die and have to be buried. So there's going to be an expense in a modern society to cremate somebody or bury them. So the benefits to selling final expense, based off of what I just said there, is it's very simple to find a lot of prospects out there. There are a lot of people, especially with the baby boomers, which is a huge percentage of the population. They're retiring at about 10 to 11,000 people per day or turning 65, technically speaking. But as you turn 65, more people retire and they start thinking about, well, I'm old, might die, should be prepared. So people have more of a top of mind awareness and willingness to consider burial insurance, or maybe even at 50 or 30, they would never consider it because they got plenty of life left to live, right? So there's a lot of prospects. The nice thing I like about final expense is that it's simpler to sell. It's not easy, but it's simple in the sense that there's not a lot of rigorous underwriting requirements. You can get the person approved on the phone because, remember, we have to go through underwriting to get approved. And you can get a decision fairly quickly. You don't have to wait weeks or months like with other products that are out there. So it allows for you to get the job done immediately and move on to find another prospect. So, and it's one of the simpler products to learn. It's a very good starter product to begin with as an agent, simply because how accessible it is and the amount of prospects you have and the ease of which, simplicity really, of which it is to get started, okay? So again, bottom line, this isn't like me saying one is better than the other. Of course, I like final expense, but there's a lot of options out there. And as we go through this, we'll kind of go into maybe how these options work a little bit further. But again, my advice here to begin with is you got to pick your poison. Pick one particular product that sounds the most appealing to you and go all in with it. I can't stress enough how important it is, because so many times I've seen agents get started in this business and they're like, hey, my friend needs health insurance, or my grandma needs Medicare, and I'm going to do, and then my mom and dad need life insurance. I'm going to do it all. And it's like, no, it's like you may get one sale at one time, but you have to learn all of this stuff. And every company, every product is different. And the more you have to know to do the thing, the less effective you're going to be. So it's better to just put blinders on, focus on one thing in order to see success. Any questions so far? Feel free to throw your question in the chat or raise your hand. Take some coffee here. All right, so let's continue. So number two, kind of general strategy that you need to follow in order to be successful selling life insurance is that you have to decide the role in which you're going to do. Are you going to sell life insurance, or are you going to recruit agents into your downline? And I wanted to make this clear, and I kind of let the cat out of the bag earlier, because so much of the life insurance space is a multi-level marketing operation, meaning there is an overemphasis, many times over sales, to recruit people into your downline, then to teach them to recruit people into their downline, so on and so forth. And it's not that this is necessarily wrong as far as recruiting. It's just that what I've seen in the decade plus that I've been really in the business, is that if you put recruiting early on in your career as the primary focus, you yourself don't have the experience or the wisdom necessary to teach somebody the craft of selling life insurance successfully. And these people that you recruit put their faith in you to teach them the right way in order to do this business successfully. And I would argue by recruiting too soon without having the requisite experience, the ups and the downs, you're doing your recruits a disservice. And you likely will have that much more failure out of it. And it's a dangerous proposition to be in because, again, what a lot of the times you'll hear is just how amazing recruiting is without all of the downside elements of it. The one thing I'll tell you about that worries me about recruiting out of the gate that very few agents are ever let known about is that when you recruit an agent into your life insurance agency downline, you are now responsible for what's called chargeback debt. Anybody know what a chargeback is? Again, I'm going to tell you the good stuff and the bad stuff. So let me tell you the bad stuff. So a chargeback is what happens when you or your agent in your agency, your downline, writes a policy, sells a policy, it's approved, but the client doesn't want to pay it anymore. Well, what you were paid isn't what's called earned income. It's actually called an advance on the hope of future premium payments being paid by the client. In other words, it's a loan with the policy as the collateral. And if that policy goes away because it's canceled, well, now the insurance company turns to the agent and says, hey, you owe me X percentage back, typically for the parts of the premium that weren't paid. So like if Mildred, our client, paid 6 months of premiums and you were advanced 9 months of a commission, you may only charge back for 3 months. Does that make sense? So it's prorated depending on when it charges back, but you're responsible nonetheless. Now that's true of any insurance agent selling, me, you, anybody else. But what the recruiting agency never really is told is that not only are you responsible for your personal production, but if that agent, which they all do, has an advance, and they have lapses, and they don't pay it back, you have to pay it back. You're now on the hook for what's called chargeback roll-ups, to where maybe they had 5,000, 10,000. I've seen numbers way higher than that. In chargeback debt, because they are in your downline and you got paid what's called an override every time they make a sale, you're also responsible for the cost to finance those agents with the advance commission. Did any of you guys know about this? So this is why it really worries me, because if you don't have that experience, wisdom, et cetera, to train an agent to sell right, to know when an agent's not doing what they should do, to be able to coach and develop and mentor them based off of firsthand experience, the likelihood is higher that you'll run into more of these chargeback issues where agents write bad business, don't do really a good job, and now you're on the hook financially. So there's other issues with MLMs. A lot of them will ask you to pay them in order to represent them, and they'll sell you stuff that's just would otherwise be considered junk, but at just egregiously high prices, like leads. There's one company in our space that did this for years, made millions of dollars selling just basically names in a phone book to agents, and it was legit legally, but ethically terribly bad. And a lot of agents got burned out of thousands upon thousands of dollars. And this is the stuff, and why is this important? Because this is the kind of stuff that contributes to agents' failure at the tune of 95%. Okay. So if MLM's bad, what should you be worried about? If you're not thinking the recruiting side of thing right out of the gate is important, what should you be concerned with? So to me, my preference and my appeal to you is to find an agency that's focused on selling life insurance successfully, that will train you how to speak to people. There is a way to speak in order to get someone's attention on the beginning of the sales call and at the end of the sales call. There are certain words that you should say. There are certain words you should never say if you want to sell successfully. And you need to join an agency that's going to coach and train you to become that individual, that can be able to do that. Let me set my cell phone up here. Because if you don't get this training, the chances are so high if you go out there and try to like wing it and do it on your own that you're going to blow it. You're going to blow a lot of money on leads and waste a lot of your time and not get anywhere. So training and mentorship to sell successfully is vitally important. Like, for example, for me, this is what I went through, a very positive experience. I joined a company called Equita Financial Services, and I sold final expense in person, like I said. And I worked with my manager named Andrew Fike. Very nice guy. Been doing final expense forever. I was able to do a ride along with him where I literally, again, we used to go in the field. Most of everything's over the phone. Sat down in the home with Andrew and the client, and I observed him sell. And I picked up on what he did, and I saw and learned, and then took that and implemented it into my own strategy. Not to mention, I got a script. I got a process of how to set appointments at the door, over the phone, blah, 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 blah. But I got foundational training that served me as an agent for many, many years. And it's this training, incidentally, this mentorship that you get as an agent that starts with learning how to sell first, that allows you one day to ultimately do a great job selling insurance, or I should say recruiting insurance agents to sell for you. So it's the old cart before the horse thing, right? I am not against recruiting, but there is a time and a place for it, right? It's like, we want to work with people as a new agent, in my opinion, that have experience, that know how to do this successfully. And likewise, the people you recruit want the same from you. So my advice is getting into the life insurance space, learn how to sell successfully, go through the ups, go through the downs, you're going to see both, and develop some wisdom. And it's at that point, if you feel like it's necessary, that I think recruiting can be very viable. Building an agency can be very viable. And actually, you'll be that much more successful because you have something to teach. You have something to convey to your new agents to learn how to do this successfully. Does that make sense, y'all? Cool. All right, a couple questions here. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Christy. Hey, Katrina, is it best to set your downline up as earned commission? Excellent question. The problem with that is that if you do that, they're not going to be making a lot of money. And, let's face it, most people are money motivated. If they're going to spend their time, effort, and energy doing something, they got to get paid. And if they're getting paid, $100 per month for the first year instead of $900 up front, and then the back 3 months is $100 each, especially if they're buying leads, it's going to be harder to push. I don't think in my many years of doing this that I have I probably had a few, maybe like 5 or less out of 5,000 that are as earned. Most people need the advance because you're asking them in many cases to go part or full time, jump all into this career, and they're going to need the money to pay for their living expenses in order to justify their investment of their time and effort, right? So the better thing to do is to not recruit, at least initially. And then when you start recruiting, is just monitor their business. Are they writing good business? Make sure you teach them the right way. There's a right way, and there's definitely a wrong way to sell life insurance successfully. And again, you'll be able to tell that to the person based off of experience a lot better with experience than if you did. Does that make sense? All right. Oh, good. Lots of questions. Good. Let me go back here. Hey, Evelyn. So you get paid as an agent. The customer cancels the policy and the agent has to pay it back. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now you can do what the last lady said. You can go as earned, and then there's no advance risk, but then you trade off, okay, no chargebacks, but then that's going to be hard to recruit people because they're not going to make a lot of money up front. Most people need to make money yesterday. So it's just a catch-22. Again, the better thing to do is chargebacks happen. As an agency, you're always going to have chargebacks. It's not that you can avoid it 100%, but you can mitigate it. You can minimize it. And the better way to minimize that is because you have experience on how to sell successfully, what to do, what not to do, and then to coach your agents to do the same, right? So it's the nature of having experience firsthand that, in my opinion, and monitoring what they do as far as writing a business, that minimizes the chargeback risk. But it's good that you guys know this because, again, most people don't. All right. Good catching up here. Going to see the questions. Soto. So you get paid the premium for the year or the percentage of that. Yes, typically in life insurance, it's 75% of the annual premium. The annual premium, by the way, think of it as the monthly premium times 12. So if I pay $100 a month for a life insurance plan, the annual premium is 100 times 12. That's $1,200, right? So I get 75% of that up front with most companies. So I'm going to get 75% of 1,200, which is $900. And then in months 10, 11, and 12, I'm going to get the remainder. So in this case, $100. Now, I didn't mention this. This assumes a commission percentage of 100%. So 100% times the annual premium, 1,200, then multiplied by the 75% advance. I can re-explain this again if you want me to. Anybody? It's very important you understand the math behind the business because it can get you if you don't. Okay, so you get paid the premium for a year, a percentage of that. So if the customer cancels on a 6 month, you're responsible for paying back the other 6 months. Typically, it would be 9 months or 75% advance. So you only pay back 3 months. But it depends on the carrier. Some pay back the whole amount. Most don't, though. Mostly it's prorated depending on when the client lapsed and what's left over that was advanced that wasn't collected on. If I'm not wrong, I've read chargebacks usually come up about 30% of your annual income. I mean, that's a good rough estimate, but it varies by carrier. Depends on how well you sell. You know, one of the tenets we teach agents is to sell to the need first and foremost. Make sure it's reasonable, not reasonably, make sure it's comfortable. Definitely comfortable for the client to pay. Now, we deal in the final expense market with fixed income seniors. They get one check from Uncle Sam every single month. They got to make that thing stretch, right? So I don't want to push Mildred, my client, to pay too much, because if she pays too much, then she'll just cancel it, right? And if you're a really good salesperson, you can talk people into doing something they shouldn't. So there's a technique we teach called selling to premium, where we get it based off of what they're comfortable paying on a monthly basis. And then we ask them, are you sure that fits your budget? We don't want to spend more than you have. And they appreciate that because you're not pushing to take every last penny like they expect you to. So it actually builds rapport. They like you a little bit more. And guess what? That helps you sell it that much better. Right? All right. It's better start off with a corporate entity like Prudential, State Farm. Man, it depends. It depends. Man, I would. So this gets into, I think, my next section here. Yeah. I'll get into that if you don't mind me waiting. Zoom user. It's a great question. I'll get into that too, Elizabeth. If I don't, call me out on the independent versus agency question. Is it best to start off with an hourly plus commission? I mean, I'm a big advocate. It's hard to find hourly plus commission in life insurance. That is, we can find it in other niches like ACA and health insurance and Medicare sales. But in life insurance, typically it's you eat what you kill. It's straight commission. So yeah, I've been contacted by so many agencies. I don't know if they are scams or actually good the company to work with. Yeah, we'll get into some techniques on how to kind of uncover that, because you're going to have some discernment. What you're saying is very true. Amaryllis, when you say there is a right way of selling and wrong way of selling, yeah, sure. So I'll reiterate that just in case it's 100% clear. Like, you have to understand, like, what do you think when you personally, what do you think when a salesperson comes to your house? I mean, I think this way. I run a sales agency. Now I got to be careful. This person might try to rip me off, right? So I'm skeptical. We're all kind of skeptical until they prove otherwise. And there is a methodology good scripts have and good training has to win the affection and the interest of the client over so they can trust you. And so that in the beginning, they think of you as an unwelcome pest, but by the end, you're a welcomed guest, okay? And so the way to do that is not just by saying things, but doing the right things too. It's not, you can say things and still rip somebody off, but say nice things. No, we want to say the right thing and do the right thing. And one of the things I like to say to get the trust from the client, that's the pivotal thing you need to sell anything in life, is to make sure they know that I care about their budget. Because this whole conversation we had, right, about chargebacks, some of you are like, oh crap, I don't want to have debt. I don't want to pay back money, much less have downlines that I have to do that for, right? So the first question you should be thinking of is, well, how can I make that as small as possible, humanly possible, right? And so that comes to what you sell and how you sell. So how you sell is making sure the client understands that you are looking out for their best interest and that you walk them through different budget ranges, and you only agree to move forward when they are comfortable with the budget range you gave them. Like, for example, if I say, hey, if I can qualify for a program today, Mildred, can you afford somewhere between $80 and $100 a month? And they're like, I think I can do that. That's not a yes to me. The fact that I think I can is like, I don't know. I'm like 80% sure. That's never good enough for me. I want 100% certainty that my client can afford what I'm selling them. Because I know when I walk away, if they already have buyer's remorse, they're like, well, I don't know if I should do this. It's just going to get worse. So instead, what I'll say is, hey, it sounds like this isn't exactly the best price. What if we step this down? What if we find something that's between 40 and 60 a month? And then they say, yeah, I can afford that. Well, now I've got them convinced that this is in their budget. And I've showed them the willingness that I'm willing to lower the price to make it work for them. And what I have seen personally by doing this for a decade plus is people appreciate you. I mean, especially with older seniors on a fixed income, because they don't make a lot of money. And the fact that you're willing to work the price down to help them out endears them to you and makes them want to do business with you, because you're looking out for something that they would assume, all of us assume, a salesperson doesn't want to work with your budget. I mean, I've had contractors come over. They don't ever ask or care about my budget. They throw some arbitrary number out. It irritates me, right? So hopefully does that make sense? But so how you sell is important. Then also what you sell. In other words, like in final expense, you can sell different products. Some products with some companies are less expensive and a better value than others. And if you're what's known as a broker, where you can choose between different products versus a captive agent, where it's just one product, in my opinion, something is better than nothing. But if you're a broker with different products and you tell the client, hey, I can get you the best coverage, that's the lowest price possible, at least compared to others, more people are going to stick with you when some other agent walks in the door and tries to say, hey, I can do better, because it'll be harder to do that if you had the ability to pick and choose, right? It's like going to a car dealership. And if you go to the Cadillac dealership, they're just going to push Cadillacs. They're not going to tell you if this Escalade is better than, I don't know, this Infiniti SUV, right? But if you think about it, a consumer might do better by going to a dealership that offers all of the new stuff. And then you can kind of get a custom tailored solution that isn't one-sided. So that's the advantage of being a broker. Maybe independent agents sometimes are called, is that you have options and you represent the client better, arguably. So you get paid the premium for a year, a percentage of that. If the customer cancels on the 6th month, you're responsible for paying that back. The other 6 months left on the policy. No, it's you get paid 75%. So you get paid 9 months of the commission as an advance. And if it lapses in the 6 months, let's say you collected 6 months premiums, generally speaking, carriers make you pay back the 3 months that have not been collected. Now, if it lapsed in the first month, you might owe back 8 months. It's prorated. It depends on when the lapse occurs. And that's normal with every life insurance company. And that's why it's so important. And I've belabored this point because it is important. You sell the right way. And you also don't recruit necessarily out of the gate, because if you get agents who don't know how to sell the right way and they push product on unsuspecting people and they don't pay back the chargeback, you're responsible. Not good. Do you have any tips for brokers trying to add life insurance into their health insurance sales? I would add it like the old Columbo close, the Columbo show back in the 60s or 70s. Oh, by the way, as you're ending the call, you can say, oh, by the way, we got your Medicare taken care of. What are you doing for life insurance? And you can transition to a call or transition to possible sale that way. I would cross-sell it. In other words, I wouldn't necessarily change what you're doing if it's working for health insurance, but I would add it in and then add those questions in. Are you responsible as an agent for renewing a policy? No. All these policies are auto-renew, especially on the life insurance side. You don't have to do anything. Okay. So moving on here. Again, thank you. Good questions, guys. Thank you. Let's keep it going. So the number 3 thing you need to do to be successful, we kind of hinted at this, in selling in the life insurance space, is to pick the best agency, right? We've talked about all the things you should be concerned about with the MLM side. But let's say you're like, okay, I don't want to do that. You've convinced me, Dave. I should go into a sales agency side. Is that enough? No. You should know what to ask and this is good for any agency if you're not sure if it's one or the other, you should know what questions to ask to discern if the agency is any good. Because remember, here's the thing. Organizations put their best foot forward in recruiting you. And many times the front men are the best salespeople. They're very convincing. They're going to tell you everything you want to hear. So you can trust, but you got to cut the cards. Okay. In other words, you've got to know what questions to ask and then read between the lines, discern what they're saying and how they're responding, and to ask yourself if what you're hearing sounds normal or sounds honest or straightforward, because you want to work and operate in an agency where there's transparency, there's understanding, there isn't animosity. And so that you have a clear understanding of what you're getting into, because remember, you're leaving a career probably in a business or an industry where you have experience to take this chance on yourself. Many of you out there are. So you don't want to just say, hey, these guys look good, let me join them. There's a few more questions you got to ask. So let's get into that. One, how do leads work? Remember, we talked earlier mentioning the other products, how important leads are. Guys, it's exactly the same concern here, okay? You need your agency to be able to explain to you how leads work. For example, where do they come from? How are they developed? Do I have to pay anything for them? How many leads do I get? These are important because without leads, you don't have a life insurance career, right? Like I said, you could sell the best life insurance product on the face of the planet, and if there's nobody willing to buy it, you're gone. You're toast. You're already out of the business. Does that make sense? Hopefully that's clear. So for example, if you're joining the DIG agency and you're asking me these questions and you said, how do the leads work? What I would answer in full transparency, say, hey, here's how they work. We generate all our leads on Facebook. They are exclusively generated internally. That's important because we can control the quality, usually a lot better than third-party options or data leads that are out there, which are much lower quality. What else? They're free. You don't have to pay anything. We just provide them to you, and you can work as many as you want and whenever you want. And these are the kind of things you want to hear, where you get a direct answer on how things work. What you don't want to hear is, oh, well, we'll talk about that after you join. Oh, yeah, we have great, we'll show you how, like, if there's kind of like a, punting the ball and they don't go into detail, or these are red flags. These are warning signs that you need to be aware of, right? Next thing on the list here is, how does commissions work? You need to understand how you're going to get paid, okay? So like, what is your starting commission percentage? How can you go higher in commission? What else? How often do I get paid? Do I get paid from the company or do I get paid from the agency? And again, you want some honest answers, preferably something to look at. And if you're getting pushback or you're getting like half-hearted answers, not good, okay? And the last thing to ask is, do I sell this in person or remotely? A lot of people out there don't want to sell in person anymore. I get it. So you got to decide, do you want to just work remotely? Because there are some agencies that all they do is in-person sales and some that do remote. Don't find out after the fact. Know ahead of time. Some other things that are really important here too is you got to ask for case studies, references, shadow meetings. So shadow group calls where you can see people get together on the agency and see what they talk about, what the structure of their conversations are like, et cetera. Ask for references. I have people who join my agency and they're like, hey, can I talk to a couple of agents via email just to kind of feel it out and see what they think? And I'm like, sure. I'm not scared as an agency owner to provide that stuff, because I want you to be as close to 100% comfortable as possible that this is the pick for you. Or case studies. Give me some examples of people who've been successful. Like, that's why I do my YouTube channel, to showcase agents in large part who are successful. If you don't get this stuff or you get pushback, trust your gut, trust your instincts. This is a career. And the thing you got to invert is, most of the time when we sit down for job interviews, they interview us, right? We're kind of like answering their questions, but you have to interview them just as much, okay? Because the consequences of coming into this business are disastrous if you do the wrong thing. Okay? Questions? All right, let's go here. Hopefully this is helpful. Yeah, after getting licensed, how can we get licensed in other states? NIPR.com. Thank you, Christy. You don't have to take the exam again. You just buy the licenses there, and they show up in a day or two. You sure do. You will get back what you put in the insurance industry, right? All right, last section here, as we wrap this up, is you got to have $1 million mindset, okay? You are about to embark on the most emotional, biggest roller coaster ride that you could ever imagine selling life insurance. You will have days where you just crush it. And you will have days, sometimes even weeks, where nobody wants to buy. And it will drive you crazy if you're not mentally prepared for the emotional roller coaster. Okay. So a couple of things, just pieces of advice as we get to the close here. Humble yourself. The more that you can be humble and be in a state of willingness to learn and of being willing to make mistakes too, because everybody makes mistakes. It's how you learn, the better off you're going to be. Don't come into this business feeling like you know everything or that something should be a certain way. If you join a good agency and you've done your due diligence, you're likely going to deal with a company that has a good structure and they do things for a certain reason. It may come off as odd or strange, or maybe you wouldn't do. But if you've done your due diligence, and you should trust the process, go all in, be humble, be coachable. That's another important thing. Another thing that's really hard to do, but viable for your success, vital, is accept constructive criticism. Okay. We have agents in our agency who don't do a good job sometimes. And we don't call them out because we want to berate them or treat them poorly. We call them out in a constructive way because we want them to do better. We don't want to throw kid gloves or shadow punches. We don't want to be ineffective in our criticism and not have you improve if you're an agent in our agency. And so we shoot people straight because we would want to be shot straight if we were doing something that wasn't as optimized as it could be. Okay. So be willing to be coached, directed, and corrected. As long as you've done your due diligence and you're with a good agency, that is going to elevate you and allow you to get uncomfortable, because you have to get uncomfortable in order to see how to improve and then apply what you've learned to get to the next level. Okay. And it is a constant process. Understand and embrace the time and results correlation. Again, there's just an element of this business that takes time to get good at. And the more time you put in, the likelihood is higher you're going to be successful. Don't get into this business saying, I'm going to do it 10, 15 hours a week and I expect to make 100,000 a year. It's not going to happen unless you're just like God's gift to sales. Probably not. It's better to assume that you're average and the way that you make more money is putting more of your time into it. Okay. That's one of our stats that we track in our agency is how many hours is an agent on the dialer. And guess what? The more they're on the dialer, the more likely they're making more sales, thus making more money. So the more you can, and this goes to the next point, go all in, the better off you're going to be. And the last thing I'll say here, for wrap it up and answer any last questions, and then I'll have to jump off too, is forget about trying something unique or what you think is special or cool. Do the boring, proven path. Okay. I failed out of this business because I got off the boring, proven path in order to satisfy my own creative whims with some different advertising. And I ultimately went broke and almost never returned, and otherwise left in a lucrative business. Your best bet as a new agent, after doing all the due diligence, is to stick with the methodology when it comes to sales, marketing, et cetera, that has been proven to work time and again, and is a function of duplicatable success. Okay. Very, very important. So in summary, pick your niche, figure out what product is right for you, go all into that one product. Number two, decide if you're in sales or recruiting. My bias is that you should sell, because by selling successfully and having ups and downs, you can therefore recruit eventually one day more successfully. Number three, pick the best agency. Do your due diligence. Take your time, ladies and gentlemen, to find the right match. The biggest mistake so many people take is they just find some agency sounds great and they just assume everything must be great, versus saying, hey, that sounds good, but let me slow roll it a little and look at some other agencies too. That is the way to find more resounding success without the landmines. And number four, develop the right mindset. Be patient, be coachable, go all in, spend as much time as you can every week, because that's gonna help you get better faster, and follow the proven path that's been successful before. And if you just do all that, your odds of success are very high selling life insurance. Thank you guys for being here. So questions here as we wrap this up. Hopefully you liked what you've heard. Yeah, Christy, one thing I like to say about rejection is people are afraid to get rejected on the phone or in person or whatever. People are not rejecting you. How could they? They don't know who you are. They don't know where you're from. They don't know your life story. Like, they can't make an opinion of you because they don't have anything to judge it on. They're rejecting your offer. They're rejecting the offer to look at life insurance options. Okay. And people are stressed. People get calls all the time. Don't take this stuff personally. A lot easier said than done. But again, this is that developing that mental strength in order to prevent you psychologically saying, oh, I hate calls because everybody's mean. And that's another paradigm or paradox of this business, is that the person who hears no the most usually makes the most money. It's like baseball. In baseball, a 300 batting average is considered elite. That means they miss 70% of the time and only hit the ball 30%. So they're missing more than 2 times the amount that they hit. So they're 2 times plus as much losers as they are winners, but they're still elite players, right? Likewise, there's a lot of similarities with selling life insurance in the sense that you just can't let no get to you if you want to be successful. And they're not saying no to you. They don't know who you are. It's not personal. It's to your offer. And if you combine that with talking to a lot of people, getting a lot of leads, getting the system that can put you in front of a lot of people, you're that much closer to hearing and seeing more yeses every single day. It is, in a sense, a game where the more you do, the more opportunity to hear yeses will come. What's the best way to find a position as an agent? I've been applying to certain agencies, but as soon as I hear that I need to pay for leads, I walk away from it. You're welcome to check out mine, daviddufour.com. There is some upfront costs, but beyond that, licensing, a joining fee, there's none. It's completely free. We provide the leads, et cetera, coaching, help closing sales, development, et cetera. But there's other agencies too. But yeah, keep looking. There are free lead organizations out there that will not require you to spend $1,000, $1,500 a week. AO, I think that's AIL. I'm not a big fan of AIL. They work, and it's strategic. I'm sure they do a great job selling what they do, but strategically speaking, I don't like working leads that are people who just send back for child safety kits, or I forget what else that they do. And then working your way into a sales presentation based off of that. With that said, AIL agents are excellent in the sense that if they can do that well, they can sell insurance pretty well. But I don't like their lead system. That's kind of my main complaint. Any good book to read on sales techniques? Brian Tracy's good. Any of his sales stuff is really good. You can put in my name into Amazon. I've got like 4 sales books on insurance. You can buy those. All right. Go for No's good. All right. Websites. Which websites did I mention? My website, daviddufour.com. That's my website. If you guys are interested to see what we do. Shameless plug. I also have a website training. Let me see if I'll put this in here too. daviddufour.com, ISS. I call it the Insurance Sales Success website. And on there it's a free repository of sales training, deep dive trainings in the final expense, annuities, health insurance, Medicare, great training for beginning agents. It's completely free. You just have to sign up. We don't take your money or anything. It's completely free. I do it as a service. So you may want to check that out. daviddufour.com/ISS. Look in the Zoom chat. Could you provide us with the website after the meeting? Would love to chat or check it out. Sure. Hopefully that helped. How much should a beginner spend on leads, if any? Kim, I'm going to be biased because how I run my agency is that we don't allow agents to buy leads because we provide them for free. I just think it's the average agent does better. Like, and when I say average, like 90% of agents would just do better learning how to sell successfully and not taking on the mental baggage and burden of spending $1,000+ a week on leads and the emotional roller coaster that comes from it. We switched to a strategy of just providing the leads for the agents for free that we develop for them. Their commission's lower, but the trade-off is you get the focus and you don't have the risk of losing money. And that's always been, I think, the biggest problem midstream for agents is being able to afford buying leads and then keeping psychologically stable. And it sounds silly, but imagine if you plow $1,000 a week and you don't make a sale for 2 weeks. Like, that's very stressful. And with the free leads, with free lead systems, you don't have to do that. So most agents should do that. Yeah, we're going to put this, Lakeisha, on my YouTube channel. So check that out. Ideally, how much money should we have to join the big agency's free lead program? It's $2,000 roughly. It depends if you already have licenses. We require 13 licenses. It's about $1,000 cost. But if you already have some of them, that's less that you have to end up paying. And then we have a joining fee that helps offset some of the sales managers' pay in order to, they'll actually help you sell a deal if you get stuck, which is a common issue for newer agents. It helps finance and pay for them and the structure behind it. So that's a one-time fee. You just pay it once and that's it. It's not an ongoing $1,000 like you would if you're buying your own leads. And then beyond that, that's all you would ever pay. You can get more licenses. We recommend it to get access to more leads later on, but not up front. Yeah, we're 100% national. So no matter where you are, Soto, you can work for us. You're welcome, Cynthia. Appreciate it. Does an agency pay for your license? It's on. Yeah, we make the agent pay for the license because we want them to have skin in the game. That's kind of what we've learned just on our end. Not everybody does what we do, but when an agent invests their money into something, they're likely that much more serious. So other than that, I mean, we take new agents just as well as experienced agents. So we don't, just take the elite, right? So that's part of the trade-off, right? So more accessibility, but showing us you have skin in the game means, hey, this person's serious. So that's very important for us. Plus you have to have the number of licenses in our case to sell because you can't just get enough leads in one state, the way the system works. All right. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Again, if you want more information on what we do, davidduford.com. That's my name, davidduford.com, davidduford.com. You can learn more about the free lead agency at Big Agency there. Also, davidduford.com/ISS. That gets you access to our free training website. Lots of good stuff there. You don't have to even join our agency to get access to it. You can do something else entirely, but we just put that out as a service to help you out because there's a lot to know. And hopefully you felt like you've learned something and at least have some more perspective. No matter what you do in your career, do your due diligence. That's the last thing I'll leave with you. This is the best business I ever accidentally stumbled on. It has radically changed my life. But I see so many people that make the wrong decisions. And this isn't about like joining the big agency as much as it about, you can join anything you want to, but please make sure you do the right thing, slow down, think through. And then when you find a good one that matches what you need, take action. And that alone is going to increase your survival rate tremendously because that's what it ultimately is about. All right. I'll be doing this next month. I got another one coming up next month sometime. I think we're going to do the 100,000 a year income strategy, selling life insurance. So thank you guys for being here and gals. Y'all have a good one. See you.
Thanks, David. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.